It's great to be with you all. Of course, I'd much rather be with everyone in person, but here we remain in the dreadful new abnormal. The bad news is we don't get to see each other tonight and have dinner in DC or Virginia. The good news, however, is that I can complete this session from home and still play 9 holes of golf tonight. That's my new normal in retirement. I managed to play golf only on the days that end in Y. Ron, do I need to explain that to you?
Can you start over?
First, thank you very much for the invitation to present some comments to a wonderful group of professionals. I'm truly honored by the request. A big shout out to the planning committee for their work. I was involved in this task twice during my consortium years, and I know how much time and effort is needed to run a conference like this. And now the added anxiety caused by technology aspects must be crazy. So thank you very much for the planning committee for all their ongoing efforts. As you can imagine, I'm asked many times if I miss anything about past life in higher education. I can say with 100% certainty that I don't miss faculty or other dreadful meetings. I will say that I miss this conference and the people as much as anything. As you know, I've been retired for about 2 years, but this organization has been the one that I've stayed involved with as a board member and a little bit of work with Susanna on legislative and advocacy items. This organization has been by far my favorite and most influential in my professional and personal lives. I hope you can get back to in-person conferences very soon to maximize the impact of these gatherings for networking, friendships, rehydration, projects, brainstorming, grants, everything. Now, I do have my first challenge for the group tonight. I hope that each of you can get at least one new member per year to join. I'm serious when I say that. Just think if each of our members got one new member per year in the next 5 years, only one. Challenge yourself to do that for the consortium. Get a mix of higher education and PK-12 adapted PE teachers, and the organization will be much better. This session has a great deal of meaning to me since Claudine was my PhD advisor at TWU, so the timing is just terrific. And yes, another TWU alum, via SUNY Cortland as an undergrad, and Brockport for my master's with Joe Winnick, Ron French, and Paul Jansma. How's that triumphant? I can still remember the phone call from Claudine about my OSEP grant-funded doctoral leadership award. In those days, it wasn't OSEP, however, it was BEH, Bureau of Education for the Handicapped. And I'm especially thankful that the year before my start at TWU, Claudine offered somebody by the name of Martha Scott from Alabama a master's assistantship in adaptive physical education because 3 years later, I married her. She then became the APE brains of the household with 27 years of full-time K-12 adapted PE itinerant teaching and adapted sport coaching in Texas, Illinois, and Wisconsin. If you look closely at the first edition of Claudine's textbook, remember that now? It was in paper and it was hardbound also. You'll actually see a picture of my wife in that book. Yes, Claudine and TWU had major impacts on my professional and personal lives. I better be careful here talking about which one of those ladies had the most influence on me since those TWU days. And by the way, I can also remember my interview with Joe Winnick for my OSEP funded assistantship at Brockport, but that's a story for another time. Now, if some of you are old enough to remember, I can also remember parties and socials at Claudine's house out in Lake Dallas, I think it was called, in Frisco. And the one strange thing from a person coming from upstate New York, where there was crystal clear, deep lakes, was we're out there water skiing behind Claudine's house, and people are telling me, watch out for the stumps. And I'm saying, what are you talking about, stumps? And all of a sudden, we go by in the boat, and there were tree stumps sticking up. And I would go, why are we possibly water skiing in this water? So it was fun time, fun time. Uh, I have been very impressed with the leadership of the consortium in the past 10 to 15 years. In no way do any of my suggestions, comments, or challenges that I present tonight mean that your leadership team has not done and continues to do outstanding works. I know they have. However, there are always new challenges that have to be faced, and being ready to address these challenges can make or break meaningful outcomes for persons with disabilities in the area of physical education. These are some thoughts for you from my work in the past few years, some of them well into retirement. I could go on for a couple of hours, but I'll zoom through via this Zoom. Some of what I suggest will not be earth-shaking solutions, but my concerns are derived from what I've experienced in the past few years as I've neared retirement and as I've worked with APE teachers, school administrators, and actually some of you since retirement. I don't need to tell you that all education is cyclical, and therefore never be surprised, never assume anything. So here we go. First, we need to prepare our future adapted physical education teachers to confidently justify their programs based on state and federal special education law, data from IEP progress monitoring, research, lifetime physical activity, and other factors. Here's some of the reasons why I say that, and I'm very, very concerned about that. Many of you have heard me jokingly say, but seriously say over the years, that our public enemy number one tends to be special education directors in the PK-12 school districts. Now, understand, I'm very careful as to whom and when I say this. Plus, some of my former APE master students are now special education administrators. But as I deal with adapted PE teachers and parents in different situations throughout the country, it's generally the special education director who has proposed cuts that are not in line with what we know is best for students with disabilities in physical education. Our APE teachers need to be ready for this reality when they exit our programs. I don't want to be negative as I talk about future teachers and with them, but they need to be taught how to justify their content and delivery to students with disabilities. They need to know that their programs and services will be at times questioned and challenged by decision makers. As an idea for you folks in higher education, a research study or project that could help practitioners is one that examines the impact of different types of APE service delivery models. I have had 3 to 4 special education directors in the past couple of years ask me for research studies that document the effectiveness of APE itinerant teachers versus paraprofessionals versus special education teachers. They There may be some studies that examine the impact of days per week, but I'm not aware of research that examines models like segregated APE classes versus total inclusion, or the impact of various amounts of instructional minutes per week on acquisition and skill retention. As many of you know, our PK-12 adapted PE service delivery models differ significantly from state to state, district to district, and even building to building within school districts. Another worthwhile project, in my estimation, would be updating or somehow validating a school district APE service delivery or program checklist. There's a useful checklist in the Winnick and Peretta textbook, but I think it could use good updating. I was asked about this type of document by 3 districts in 3 different states in the past 2 years. And in every case, the special education administrator was questioning the quality and content of existing programs in relation to how teachers were delivering adapted physical education. Second, the consortium has to be a leader in assisting teachers and/or parents who are challenged by school districts to justify APE programs and services. In the past 5 years, I've had numerous occasions where fairly new and young adapted PE teachers were facing program and staff cuts that were not fun. I really felt sorry for some of these young professionals who would say, my special ed director or coordinator just told us that 4 or 5 positions are going to be cut, or that the high school adapted PE program was being phased out next year. What a kick in the face it is for these first and second year teachers. Can you imagine how you'd feel? The consortium is hopefully ready to assist these folks as it has been in the past. Susanna is aware of these situations that have occurred and has provided a great deal of life support, but we need to get the word to parents and adapted PE teachers that the consortium has resources and persons to assist. No one else will do this. Not SHAPE, not CEC, not the APHA, not the ACSM, on and on. And this is where having parents as strong allies is very important. Plus, higher education folks have much more freedom to get parents rallied compared to young teachers who are being told by administrators, don't get parents riled up. The consortium needs to continue and expand this type of rapid response advocacy. Folks in your states need to know that the consortium exists and is ready when needed. One of those APE teachers is on this webinar now. Her name is Katie Hummel, and she's from a district in Colorado who was told one day about 3 months ago that her and 4 of her colleagues would be cut next year. Somehow she got a hold of my name and the consortium, and we got into action to assist her. She had no idea the consortium existed, but we were able to assist the situation and at least slow down the wheels of a special education administrator. Katie would be an excellent speaker at next year's consortium conference as a study for program advocacy and how to prepare future teachers for this role. And Katie, I hope you are on there. You told me you were going to be. Next challenge or suggestion. If your state does not have an add-on license or adapted physical education preparation program with a separate assessment course, be sure the general physical education teachers are well prepared to competently partake in the IEP process, including an array of assessment instruments. I have had 4 or 5 special education administrators tell me in the past 2 to 3 years that general PE teachers have no idea about adapted PE assessment, criteria for special education eligibility via adapted PE, IEP goal monitoring, presenting at IEP meetings, etc. It's hard to argue those statements when you look at some IEPs and hear what is not happening in these districts. And I know I'm preaching to the choir tonight, okay? But this is what I sometimes hear from school district administrators especially in those states without quality adapted PE teacher preparation programs or persons who have never seen competent APE teachers in action. I can't believe when persons say things like, I didn't know these APE type people existed. Again, never be surprised, never assume anything. Next, I urge everybody in the consortium to get to know the director and some staff at your OSEP-funded state parent centers. These are called Parent Training and Information Centers. There's about 100 of these centers around the country. To find the center, or actually centers, many states have multiple ones, you simply need to Google the Center for Parent Training and Resources, or Parent Hub, H-U-B. Within this network around the country, there are also parent technical assistance centers in some states that serve multiple states. This is a terrific network of education and technical assistance centers for parents and families with disabilities. My experience has mostly been with the centers in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Many of you may be aware of the PACER Center in Minnesota. It's an award-winning organization. These centers are funded via competitive OSEP grants and offer hundreds of workshops and consultations each year for parents and others in every state. In Wisconsin, I did a webinar or teleconference each year that explained the legal and practical aspects of adapted physical education. In some years, I would co-present with a state education department staff member who was from special education in Wisconsin. The staff at these centers love to get information to parents, and you'd be impressed at the calendar of events that each one of these parent centers has. You should all present for your centers about physical education requirements in IDEA and what students with disabilities should be getting. My guess is you could pull all content from your introduction to an APE courses and put it all together in 30 minutes. I can't imagine it would take any of these more than 30 minutes to put it together. We received help with several graduate student thesis projects that involved parent perceptions of physical education and sport programs for persons with disabilities. Our parent center also allowed us to make inroads with state level officials that we just couldn't link with ourselves. They are very well connected in every state. Google the national website and find out who's involved with your site. This network could also be valuable for advocacy when IDEA is reauthorized very shortly, my guess would be. They can get parents politically activated in a heartbeat. Let your state parent center know that you are available to help parents that have questions about adapted physical education and PE in the special ed process. This type of activity led me to meet all sorts of parents from not only Wisconsin, but the entire country, because your parent center will suddenly get a call from another state and they'll want to connect you with somebody else. These folks are great networkers that we need to be involved in. Let them know that you can be on call for any questions about physical education for students with disabilities. A collaborative relationship with your state-funded or your OSEP-funded parent center is a great investment of your time and expertise. Next, as I have worked with adapted physical education professionals around the country, I find that states that have some sort of professional organization, like an APE State Leadership Council or a coalition of adapted PE professionals, or whatever term is used, seem to have a more effective and efficient means to offer help to K-12 adapted PE teachers as these challenges arise. I urge you to organize this type of group in every state and that the consortium connects with these groups just like we connect with Shape America, CEC, CCD, ACSM, and other organizations. This type of group in a state could be aligned with a Shape state affiliate, or it could be independent. There are advantages and disadvantages to both approaches. The composition of this group would be most impactful to include K-12 adapted PE teachers, higher education staff, persons with disabilities, parents of persons with disabilities, and special education and related service representatives. NCPEID is a great for advocacy, but a state adapted PE advocacy group can be so much more effective and be in touch with local affairs in a timely manner. I challenge each of you to make this happen in your state, and for the consortium to look at states that don't have this and try to give them some help. Get a person from the State Department of Education on your committee in some way. It could be just advisory, but be sure this person is aware that you actually exist. Hopefully this person could also feed you information about the state and what might be happening to impact adapted physical education. This relationship with the State Department of Education is critical. And also, I think the teacher education folks at your universities can make some of these connections. In Maine, very recently, I think this connection kind of broke down with the Maine Coalition in Adapted PE and the people at the state level. And they're dealing with some significant impact now in relation to their Maine adapted PE credential. Next quick item. When working with PK-12 school administrators at all levels, use the term physical education to be aligned with federal and state education mandates and regulations. I understand and agree with the concept of adapted physical activity for the lifespan, but when administrators hear the term adapted physical activity, I hear them sometimes say, oh, we can do that at recess then, or on the playground with a paraprofessional. And I've heard administrators say, well, would we be able to replace our teachers with other people that can do adapted physical activity? So again, it's a minor thing, but make sure you're talking their language. Now, although I recommend that using the term adapted physical education, I also implore you to prepare your future APE teachers to work in interdisciplinary or interprofessional environments with special education, related services, and community recreation or physical activity personnel for lifetime physical activity. And just as important, get the parents involved in this lifetime concept. I'm experienced enough, a nice way to say I'm old enough, to see kids who have started programs at the ages of 3 to 5 who are now 25, 30, 35 years old. I still go on 20 to 30-mile bike rides with some kids who have aged out of our university-based and school district special education programs. These graduates can turn into incredibly sedentary and unhealthy citizens if not taught how to use and access community physical activity resources. This is one of the main reasons we got the OSEP letter of clarification a few years ago that was targeted at secondary level special education transition programs. Our future teachers need to focus on realistic and community-based PA options for all high schoolers. Look at what these folks are going to be doing when they're 25, 30 years old. With your work with your community and parks and recreation folks to be with teenagers in high schools. Teach parents about these options. Let's be realistic. It's not lifetime baseball, basketball, football, etc., for most kids when they age into adulthood and have disabilities. It's biking, hiking or walking, swimming, and hopefully using public fitness and wellness centers. Future teachers need to recognize this and include lifetime activities for physical activity in IEPs. Adapted physical education is good public health practice. Just like ACSM says, exercise is good medicine. I can't think of many more important things for an APE program or teacher to ask, such as what will the students be able to do in the community to keep physically active when they transition out of K-12 programs? If that's not a priority for all special education transition programs, I don't know what is. And again, now this was reinforced with one of Scott's podcasts very recently. I think it was entitled From Adapted PE to Public Health with Heidi Stanish. It was a great session, but we really need to focus on that. Next quick one for you. Be ready for everything when IDEA reauthorization comes up. Of course, we've been saying this for the past 15 years, but seriously, the Biden administration will be more likely to move on this than the last administration. I know Susanna and her legislative committee has definitely had this on the radar, but they will need everyone's help when this happens. For example, every member should be ready to talk with their federal legislators, and even more importantly, have several parents ready to email and or call these persons to support retaining and enhancing the presence of physical education in IDEA. Be prepared for individuals or professional groups to try to cut PE back or even remove it from the definition of special education. Never be surprised, never assume anything. Remember back in 2004, it was one very influential, large urban school district, Chicago, that was able to get the first major change in IDEA regarding physical education. It went from all children with disabilities must receive physical education instruction to unless their non-disabled peers at the same grade level don't get it. One school district was able to do that. I read all of the comments that were submitted through a Freedom of Information Act request, and I was blown away that one school district was that influential. And again, that's a whole other topic, but we need to be ready for that type of activity happening. Finally, as some of you know, I'm the proud owner of a new cow tissue aortic valve in my heart. I had a heart procedure done about 6 weeks ago, and I'm doing great. Okay, I'm doing great. I'm back to doing everything that I was doing pre-surgery. Here's an ironic part about it all. My wife is a full vegan and has been a great influence on me in the past couple of years with no meat or no fish. But now I have a cow tissue valve. Think about that one. And here's the beauty of modern medicine. Okay, get ready for this now. The Wednesday before my Friday surgery, I did my usual 25-mile bike ride. Thursday morning, I did my usual 2-hour hill workout. And less than 24 hours after that, I was lying on that cold, hard table, getting all sorts of holes put in my body by 4 doctors, and I got a new heart part. 24 hours after that, my wife was driving me home from the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. Fortunately, we only live an hour from that fantastic resource. And as a quick, funny story, today I had my first post-surgery echocardiogram. If you haven't had one of those, they're done in a very quiet and dimly lit room for about 90 minutes. Well, this afternoon at about 2:30, I fell completely asleep during the echocardiogram. Yes, retirement is the best world to be in. And here's the best news on age and retirement, on the age and retirement fronts. I have only 9 months left until I move up to the forward tee boxes on the golf course. I'll be 70 next year and will feel guilty, but very happy hitting from those forward tees. I did it on the back nine about 2 months ago, and I was smiling after every hole. It's going to be like taking candy from a baby as I win even more money from Brock McMullen after every round of golf. Hey, thank you very much again to the conference planners for the invitation to share some thoughts with you and their work putting together a top shelf professional development conference. I was humbled and honored by the request. Our field is in great hands with you folks teaching adaptive physical education in the PK-12 schools and others preparing future professionals in higher education. We just need many, many more of those competent hands in the public schools. Keep up the great work, all right? And best wishes as you transition now back into professional work in person. And one more thing for Tim Davis, go New York Yankees. Now, one other quick thing I added just at the end here. One other quick thing. I know you had Louise and Sarah present yesterday. I could take several hours on OSEP development, professional development grants. That's for another webinar. All I can strongly recommend tonight is that members of the consortium continue to increase the number of submissions for your APE interdisciplinary master's programs and doctoral programs. Okay, I need to stop now. I'm due soon to throw batting practice at the All-Star game.